just the ultimate walk-off, how substantially lower it has to get for me to come and talk. Where's the pedestal after that one?
Do I have the box to stand on?
Yeah, I mean, that way we can keep the mic size the same.
So a lot more size and talent in that tight end group this year. What have you seen out of the guys that are new into that group?
I think it's been a competitive camp. As we start to build the room, and the way that all of us as offensive coaches start to see the tight end being utilized, what you start to see is the guys that came in that are better at a couple different facets of play start to push the other guys. Because it just starts to create a little bit of that internal competition of, I don't want to be shown up, that's how I can do it better. And then you start to get a bunch of guys that really uplift and continue to build and grow their skill set. And that's what I've seen through the fall. Obviously key flashes with a lot of the plays that he makes in the air. But what I think has been cool is you see him make a lot of those splash plays in terms of catching the football. What that does is that makes Alex Lines, that makes Tanner. It makes a lot of the guys in the room like Berto, hey, I got to be able to make those plays too. And then from a run blocking standpoint, it works the same way. You start to see Alex Lines have some unbelievable edge-setting blocks. Kean, hey, I can do that too. And so it continues to grow that way. And that's what I've seen through these, 9, 10 some odd practices so far.
What's the biggest development in terms of growing into a blocking tight end like Kean's trying to do?
I think it's just understanding front structures and gap fits, trying to get them to, understand to anticipate things. Instead of just telling him, hey, you've got to block a defensive end, he's got this gap control and he's trying to fit this gap and squeeze so you can use a lot of his defensive responsibility against them.
Are those two guys playing the same position right now?
We're trying to find a variety of different ways that we can match them up. We're going to put them in the game where majority of the time Alex Lines will be the Y and Key will be the F, which is a little bit more of your traditional flex out receiving tight end. But I also want to see what both of those guys can do in terms of flipping that role and seeing what we can get done because, it's going to be trial by fire for Key.
What went into the decision to move Isaiah to the other side, and what are your expectations?
I think it was a little bit of just depth, quite frankly. Trying to make sure that we're finding a way to not have one or two of those guys on the field for 100 different plays during the course of a practice. But secondly is Isaiah did a lot of return work for me in the special teams game, so I saw how smart he was and how capable he was in terms of understanding fits. And for what we're able to do with Clay, I see being able to potentially build a rollout for him in that manner as well. Yeah, but I've been really, really surprised and pleasantly surprised, not really surprised, I think, just in terms of how well he fits the run and how well he does stuff at the line of scrimmage as well.
What have you added to your plate in terms of special teams duties?
Every single part of it. So there was already doing the return units were kind of my baby from this past year, but everything from field goal to field goal block to kickoff, coordinating every single facet of the teams.
Where were the breakdowns in punt protection last year, and how do you avoid repeating that?
I think a lot of them were just one-on-one matchups, and I think being able to overemphasize what the intent of our punt protection is, starting off with, hey, we're going to protect first instead of, and then react to hold up. I think we just have to get back to fundamentals because a lot of that, you go to a lot of press conferences and that's kind of coach speak, right? Is we got to get better at technique and fundamentals. But I think that's the honest to goodness truth. So when you start off a spring camp or you start off a fall camp, you get back to square one and you really beat those down and make sure that everybody's dialed on the expectation and the intent of your punt coverage. And then you start to see a little bit of the flourishing in terms of being able to grow and build some FBI.
Those guys who stand in front of the punter, the three guys, I guess, usually, what are they called, and who are the guys that you trust?
So they are the shield, and those guys are essentially the last line of defense. We're going to move a couple of different ways and kind of formation it a little bit differently, so it's not always going to be just a three-man deal. We're going to jump around, but that's kind of been my background and what I'm comfortable with, just in terms of how we can get guys in different positions to be able to make it unique and formate some things and get fast guys down the field.
Is it typically tight ends, offensive linemen, defensive linemen?
A mixture of both. I think you have to reevaluate those roles every single time. As you start to add eligible numbers into that shield, that changes things for a punt return unit as well in terms of aggressiveness and cover down rules.
Do you have any kickers or punters or walk-ons who are coming in the summer to add some more legs, more coverage?
We're definitely in the process of recruiting a couple guys to be able to do exactly what you said, is to be able to build a little bit of depth. But also, I think competition's got to be the central thing in everything that you do. And that'll make Luke better. That'll make Dort better. Had fantastic seasons, especially to finish it. But there's no reason that we can't push the envelope and make sure that those guys are continuing to progress as well.
Thank you so much.
Sorry, I can't give the introduction that BC did.
You could.